We give a floor to Letizia Mencarini with the paper Is Gender Inequality at Home a Reason for Forgoing Parenthood?
Yes, good morning to everybody. This is a paper co-author also with Maria Letizia, and Raffaella and Thais from Bari. Maria Letizia gave this title that actually is not the title of the paper. And the reason is that, of course, she wants to highlight what is relevant for this seminar of a paper that is more general. So about gender equality and fertility, Maria Letizia has said a lot, so I'm not going to repeat in detail anything. I just want to say that at the macro level, this link or relationship seems very clear, and there is consensus about that. At individual level, the situation is more mixed, more fragmented the result, but here we enter then in measurement issues. So how we measure gender equality and which kind of gender equality matters to reproductive behavior. So this is quite important, and I think it's something where there is no consensus yet. Of course, there is a big differences. Today we have already said that Maria Letizia couldn't, I think, enter too much in details, but there is a sort of polarization, at least in Europe, between Southern European countries and Northern European countries, with the continental one in the middle, where for sure double shift of double burden, if we want to take this nice definition from American literature, it's really more present for several reasons. So when we talk about gender equality and fertility, for sure, we should be very clear what we mean for gender equality. What we mean for gender equality, and then we should study differences between men and women, because sometimes we tend to study women just because we have data, but the other part is very important. Parity, so the number of children already had by individuals, is very important, but also the context where they live is going to change a lot. Then also going in the literature, of course, it's very important what is gender ideology, so what men and women think about gender equality, but also what they consider fair for men and women. And this is the distinction made for the first time, I think in the first paper, not precisely, but later on better by MacDonald. That is really the mismatch between what men and women want and what they have in the society and in the couple, that can create some problems and might reduce fertility. Because if everybody is happy on what it has, then maybe this is not important for fertility. So you find this U-shape that Maria Letizia found. Usually we can measure mainly gender equality with data, and not even very well even that. So this paper is only about Italy, although we will see that we then found other similarity in other countries. So for sure, when we talk about Italy, we can say that there is a persistence of male-bedroom model, but the rising of double income couple, it's really now among the younger generation very important. There is a different time use, as Maria Letizia has documented in several papers. So Italians, they work more at home. They want to cook more, and maybe they have a higher standard, and of course then it's much easier to share a few hours of house chores than several hours of house chores, and this is the same also with childcare. About the scarcity of institution and policy, we can talk a lot, but of course this is another characteristic of our country. In the past, with Maria Letizia and our Dutch colleague, we have shown that in Italy, an unequal division of housework had a negative impact on fertility intentions, especially for women that had one child, and especially where the domestic burden was particularly heavy. So in a sense, we started for that, but we went further than this, because the Italian context has for sure changed, as I've already said, and maybe it's also very important the transition to parenthood, as also now Giampiero has said. So the transition to the first child is becoming really something very important, and maybe different also when we consider some characteristic compared to the father parity. And of course, there is also a family context and a family and union context that is changing in Italy, and we cannot ignore that from 2021, more than 40% of the births are out of wedlock. So lots of things are changing, but fertility levels. So here we inquired, sorry, I should stay, I leave it there. We want to inquire the division of household chores, and we are really interested in men and women in parity, so childless individuals versus parents, and then we also looking at the characteristic of the child when there is, and in this sense we cannot study much. The one characteristic we have is the sex. The data are the old data. I say old because soon it will be 9 years, 10 years, of family and social subject. A new survey has been finished right now, but of course we will have data soon. So here we select a subsample of individuals, those who are partner. I don't understand why it continue to go up even if I don't touch it. So a little bit less of men and women, and only between 20 and 40 years, with or without children in couple. I put immediately the flows about the data. We have small subsamples, so we have lots of ideas, and also reviewers of this paper, they suggest lots of further analysis that we cannot do because we have very small cells. But what is more important, more than the numerosity, is that even the gender variables are not particularly well taken. So there is no indication of sharing, of the total sharing of activity. There is no indication of number of hours, and there are no information about the care of children, so we can work only on housework. That is something, but it's not all, because of course this can change, also related to the birth of the child, but also can interact with the time of childcare, and we have lack of information about gender equity. So once I've said all these flows, our dependent variable is intention to have or not to have a child. There is a 4 degrees of this, but we dichotomize just in 2, and then we highlight, we build an indicator of female burden according to the activities that men and women were doing and were declaring, because actually we don't have couples again, but we have individuals in couples. So they declare information for their activities and the partner, but we don't have the counterfactual of declaration of the partner. And we have usually control. So here we have intentions by parity of having kids or not. And as we can see, there are already some differences between men and women in intention. So the probably definitely not, let's say, is more present for women than for men, definitely. We measured the gender equality with this index about some activities. We gave some scores, and then we were able to build what we call women burden, and we obtain a composite indicator through the categorical principal component analysis, and then we normalize it between 0 and 1. And here the funny thing is that, of course, we don't have couples. They are not the same individuals, but the burden declared by women is far higher than the burden declared by men for women. So we don't know if this will be the same in the couple, but of course there is a suspect on that, but it's not possible to assess the discrepancy within the couple. We tried also to measure gender equity. We try with a proxy agreement with one item that say that naturally daughters should take care of dependent parents more than sons as traditional values, but actually it didn't work so well. And then for gender ideology, we said agreement with feeling fulfilled only if we have one child. If we have children, these are items already used from previous paper that should indicate more traditional roles, and it is the same also for men. What we found, so this is the first result. I'm going to be fast on this, but this is quite clear that for men, the women burden doesn't change anything on fertility intention, nothing at all. So if a woman works a lot, all controls, of course, included in the model, whereas for women, it's clear that there is a gradient that decreasing the fertility intentions if the burden is going up. However, if we look by parity, we discover something quite interesting. Because if we look at women, and these are only women, because we said that for men there is nothing, so there is nothing, I confirm, even if we distinguish by parity or other characteristic. So this is a result per se, that the models that are built in the same way, they have the same numerosity, they don't have any result for men. For women, when we look about the parity, as you can see, from the red arrow, the gradient is particularly decreasing for childless women. And this is a new result because in the previous analysis we did, actually we always found the gradient for women with one child, where here, of course, we have a strange measure of gender, of burden that is only on housework, so we should consider that. But if we consider the burden on housework, more burden a woman has, the more it seems to desire to have another child, while for father parity there is no result. But this, it can be further indicate if we look at the gender of the first child. So if the first child is a son, is a boy, burden doesn't change anything. If the first child is a girl, it seems that more is the burden, more there is the intention to have the next child. Of course, here probably we lose part of the story. That is the fact that even controlling for other factors like working and non-working, the more traditional women are those who bear on their shoulders more of the family burden and house chore burden, and so they tend probably to want more another child if they have a girl. About the explanation of that, in a previous version and previous presentation we had done with Maria Letizia, we heard lots of stories. Maybe women, maybe girls, they help more at home, so mothers are happier with girls and they feel free, they feel ready to have another child. Actually, unfortunately, if we look at other variables like the preference for son and girls that we don't have in this data set, but we find in other data set, it seems linked to that. So it seems to be poor traditionalism. Why I say that? Because we obtain exactly the same graph from a similar model to another data set that is a comparative family survey on 8 countries that we did with some Asian American colleagues, and the graph for Italy is exactly this one. Exactly. I mean, I thought it was a mistake because it was exactly the same. And the funny thing is that we obtain the same graph also for Spain. Whereas, for instance, for Norway or US, we don't obtain anything because they don't care about the sex of the children. Whereas for Japan and South Korea, we obtain the contrary. So they would prefer to have girls. So this is, but here, since we want to talk about childless, more than this result, what it needs to be underlined is the, yes, I'm concluding, is the fact that for the first time, even for childless women in childless couple, gender issues seems matter. Thank you.
So now there is time for questions. Oh, one question.
No question. Yes, one question for Letizia. Just to verify your idea, your hypothesis, have you tried to estimate, also the data are really, really old, to estimate with the gender and generation survey, that is the, if your hypothesis is supported from your, using this data set, because this data set uses 2 waves, and you have the intention in the first wave, and also just to see if your hypothesis, but the data set are really, really old, the data set, no?
Well, not only they're old, but the second wave is not a real second wave. Because it's a subsample of the first wave, so I don't think we can do much with that. We have already used it, but
because it's a good idea to see if the first intention.
They didn't interview everybody, but interview only one per family, so it's a little bit of a strange panel.
And also you lost the person that
no, we didn't try.
Out of the.
No.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Coffee break.